Welcome to Let's Change Sport, a podcast series joined by athletes and organisations to give their say on social change. In our first episode, we discussed homelessness with Street Child United and Sadiq John, an ex-player for Tanzania. If you missed the episode, you can catch up right now on Spotify. This week, we will be talking all things mental health. I will be joined by Matthew, the founder of If You Care, Share, and Olivia Ray, a cricketer for Scotland. 10 years ago, If You Care, Share Foundation was founded with the goal of saving lives, supporting communities, and preventing suicides. They remain firmly committed to that goal and are doing everything in their power to help make this happen. Over the past decade, they have supported thousands of people, provided training, talks, and awareness to tens of thousands more. And I'm delighted to be joined by Matthew, the founder of the organisation, today. Thank you so much for joining. So going into your 10 years now, which is an incredible achievement in itself, how did it all start?
It was started by myself. It was started by my family after, unfortunately, I lost my older brother, Dan, to suicide. Dan was 19 at the time, normal 19-year-old lad, loved football, had lots of friends, family that loved him, and there wasn't any indication of what he was going through, kind of didn't show any signs of struggle or anything like that. And even kind of now, so I was 10 at the time, but even now, we still don't know why. We don't really know the why as to why he made that decision. And what we found after losing Dan, there was a lot of other people who were going through something similar to what we experienced as a family. So what kind of started it was basically we just wanted to do something to remember Dan.
So let's kick things off with our first question. Why do you think it's important to talk about mental health?
I think what we can all do better is educate from a young age. It's been ingrained in us that we have to be brave. You know, I think about like when I was younger and like if I fell over, it was you've got to be a brave lad. I was never really told it was okay to cry. Like I was only told it was okay to cry because my brother died. Whereas my friends and stuff like that who potentially hadn't gone through any experience like that weren't really told that. And it's okay to cry. Like, why did it take my brother taking his own life for somebody to tell me that was okay to cry? And I think education, that's the simple answer. I think we look too short term and we think, yeah, but we need results now, but we're educating for like the future mums and dads, the future teachers, the future rulers and all that sort of stuff. And it's education. That's where I think we fall short.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's almost like when you grow up, if you cry, you're a crybaby. And, like if you're struggling, like, yeah, you can talk about it, but, you're strong enough. You don't need to go and see the doctor about it or stuff like that. I think in some terms, it's definitely looked down upon to say that you're a person with mental health. And I think that's where it's almost going wrong. It's almost like if you have a mental health problem, it's embarrassing when that's definitely not the case.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's almost pushed down. And I'll give you an example of, I'll go back to football. So we're working with kids 8, 9, 10-year-old talking about feelings and stuff. And I always remember one club. We do a little exercise where we get them all to shut their eyes and just put their hands up if they've ever done something. And we'll ask questions like, has football ever made you sad? All real normal things that we'll experience. And always say, has football ever made you cry? So all the kids put their hand up. One kid opened his eyes, looked round, and was like, "Ha! You've all cried," and like, and then was like, "That's so embarrassing." But that's not that kid's fault. That's because that's how that kid has been brought up.
Yeah.
That crying is embarrassing, and this is a 9, 10-year-old kid, and it's like, wow. But that as well, that comes from parents, and that's not me saying it's the parents' fault, because the parents have never been told. The parents have never been educated. So there's got to be just that. We need to stick it in the ground and say, right, we stop that old way and we're going this way. I think we are going in the right direction, but we're miles away. We are miles away.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Mm.
As previously mentioned, between January and July last year, I think it was 355 professional players within the Premier League that requested assistance regarding their mental health.
Mm.
You say that in itself, and that figure to show, these young people that that's a step in the right direction, and that where they're admitting to struggling and that they're not so afraid in a sense. Would you say that that's a step into the right direction and cementing these new paths for the future generations?
100%. I think football is making huge strides. I think, ourselves being part of the journey and seeing the fantastic work that's being done, not just from ourselves, but the likes of Sport and Chance, the PFA, stuff like that, and the education that's being done, but also the support services that are available for players through the PFA and the counselling service and stuff. I always remember when I first kind of came on board and did this, this would have been probably eight years ago, something like that. And I can remember saying, I don't think we'll see a current player playing at the top level actually actively come out and say, do you know what, I've struggled. However, where we are now, we are seeing handfuls of players coming out and putting their hands up. And it's unfortunate that we're having to see that, but they're acknowledging that they can struggle and that they can have that perceived weakness, so to speak. It's not weakness, because we all struggle.
Yeah.
So I think we're going in the right direction in terms of football. I think in society we're going in the right direction. It's great to know that them players are seeking help and getting the help, and I think that's a big part of, I'm always conscious of we're always saying you have to talk, but what if the help isn't there? But footballers are fortunate that they do have this network around them, so to speak. But yeah, we are going in the right direction. My main concern is those that are left behind or lost because they haven't had enough education or enough support from wherever, not just within football, outside of football as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like every year when a certain day comes and it's like the World Suicide Prevention Day, that it's almost spoken about for that week, and sometimes the conversations like isn't continued throughout the whole year, but that's why it's so important to have organizations like yourself to step in and start the conversations and keep them going. But how would you say COVID has affected yourself, the charity, and situations that you've been dealing with?
Me personally, I would say it hasn't been great, as in kind of it's been difficult. However, I would say I'm fortunate because of certain things I've had to deal with in the past, obviously losing my brother, own stuff with my own mental health. I would say I'm a relatively resilient person. I've got good coping strategies in place. So I know when I go into them difficult dips, I've got things to kind of manage that. So I'm kind of fortunate in that, yeah, talking about myself. But for the charity, it's been tough. It's been very difficult. One of the main reasons being that more people are needing help. I think, understandably, with everything that's going on, this is something that is so uncertain. There's so many levels of anxiety and stress and frustration as well. A lot of the things that we take for granted that we normally use to help us to cope have been completely taken away from us. Even for me with football, football's a huge part of my life, and it's almost been stripped back. So I think we've recognized that as a charity in terms of the impact it's having on so many people. However, I do think a kind of bizarre positive to take from COVID is it's made us reevaluate actually what we use to look after ourselves and how important the simpler things are, like going for a walk. Like how valuable actually going
Yeah.
for a walk is. And I always remember first lockdown, like when we were told we were only allowed one exercise a day, and you would see people everywhere exercise. And I think it's almost taken us being told you're not allowed to do that to really invest in that sort of stuff. And I
Yeah.
really hope we don't go overcompensating on the other side when we come out of like, oh, well, that was all right, but now I'm going to go so over the top and I'm going to spend all this money on all this stuff and go on loads of holidays. Actually, no, there has still been amongst this horrendous time some little positives. I would hope for everybody. I know for some people it's been horrendous, and I never undervalue or undermine that. But like, I would hope there is still them little snippets, them little wins we can take, and hopefully we can come out the other side stronger. That's my hope from it.
Yeah, definitely. And as a charity, would you say like it's affected not your income, but in terms of fundraising and stuff like that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we are still relatively quite a small charity, and fundraising is a huge part of everything we do. It keeps us operational, and majority of our fundraisers for the past year have had to be cancelled. You know, the London Marathon, the Great North Run, all them sort of things are some of our biggest fundraisers. Any events, anything like that, even the little fundraisers, the little bake sales, the little evenings that people have on, where I say little, but actually for us it's huge, and it really does make a difference. And every penny goes towards saving a life in some respect. So we've had to kind of pull things back a little bit. However, it's just going to give us another opportunity, and to look at it in a positive way, to just be creative with things. I know we chatted about it earlier. I did a fundraiser where I ran around my street and did a marathon around my street. We've had some amazing people do some amazing things. And I think one of the big things that we have to take away from all this horrendous situation, what's going on, and all the negativity, is that actually the majority of people are really good people, and they're really genuine and supportive, and want to give something back. So I think, as much as we prod ourselves with the stick and we prod the situation with the stick, prod the situation with the stick. There's been a lot of good in people that I've found from this.
Yeah.
Definitely, and I think it takes so much bravery to share your own story, and especially to create an organization like how you have. It's incredible to come off of, such a tragedy and make something so powerful that has helped a lot of people and a lot of families as well. Like, as we spoke about earlier, education is the key, and that's something that you guys are providing, and it's something to be very proud of. Olivia Ray is a cricketer for Scotland and is an avid advocate for mental health. So we've spoken about it many times before, and I spoke about it with Matthew earlier, but from an athlete's point of view, why do you think it's important for players to open up about their mental health?
I think for me, the best way to describe it is, we would talk about a physical injury, we would tell our coach, because we want to get it better, we want to know how we can do things to strengthen it. And it's the same with mental health. Talk about how you're feeling, what you're going through, and then you can get the best support available in order to get better and be better.
Why should organisations such as If You Care Share, sporting academies, or even just your grassroots clubs educate children and players on mental health? Why is it so important that they do that?
It's really important because it firstly reduces any stigma that might be existing around mental health. It lets people know that it's okay to talk about how they're feeling. It's also an important way to signpost people to the help that they can get. And I think it's a really, really important role for these charities to be doing, and they're doing so much great work.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. When I spoke to Matthew earlier today, we dived into the history of their organisation, and you can just sense the passion to help other people and to make sure that, how he felt doesn't happen again to anyone. Like even yourself, you're an advocate for mental health, even a mentor, if I may. So, what advice would you give to someone who's struggling?
I would say that remember it's temporary, it's not a permanent feeling. It might take time to get better, but please hold on to that knowledge that it will be okay. I like to think of mental health like the weather. So you've got rainy days, and we always know that the sun will come out again. It can rain for days on end, but we do know that sun will come out again, and that is the best piece of advice. So when you're struggling, just remember that, and keep going. And of course, just to add to that, find somebody you trust to talk to, and it can be the step to getting the best support available for you.
And that wraps up this week's episode of Let's Change Sport. If you'd like to know more about the If You Care Share Foundation, you can visit their website at ifyoucareshare.co.uk. And as always, our DMs are open if you need someone to talk to. Their website also has links that can help you. Join us next week where we tackle racism, and we'll be joined by Kick It Out and a rather special footballer. Follow our social media accounts to stay tuned and stay updated with us. See you next week.